Really lovely to see you all. I am not going to be showing loads and loads of data because I'm obsessed with other things at the moment. I originally was a particle physicist. I then went in briefly into quantitative finance. Very different sort of data. You're starting off with very specific things you're trying to prove absolutely and moving to a massive needle in a haystack that's incredibly swayed by human behaviour. After that, I went and ran a medtech company, built lots of algorithms to try and measure biological systems, different type of data again. And after we sold that company, I didn't know what to do, and I had had a few glasses of wine, so I applied for a job in Downing Street, as you do. And I was very, very surprised to get the job. And so I went in September 2020, and I sat down with the principal private secretary, and he said, welcome. And I said, thanks very much. And he said, I've got one piece of advice for you. And I said, brilliant, what is it? And he said, you've got 6 months to have an impact. And I said, gosh, what would you like me to do? And he said, so I don't know. And what had been happening, of course, in government was that over the previous 6 months, it became apparent that having really good data was a very good way to manage something like a pandemic. A lot of work had gone into opening up data sets, and we were suddenly in a position where the Prime Minister and other ministers had a flow of data and information, and they thought it would be a good idea to try and get that about everything else. And so I went in, but into a building that wasn't expecting quite what we were going to do. And what I thought would happen is I'd go in and I'd go, gosh, you're doing educational policy, we've got some amazing data, we've got some predictive models, we can really help you make great policy decisions, and would you like to see it? And they said, no, go away. Not all of them. There were some people that were really keen. And I quickly started to learn that I'd had quite a narrow view of data and what it was and what we did with it. Despite having a background of using lots of different types of data in different ways, I hadn't thought about what was most important, which is, I think in many ways, for a lot of us, data information about how people work and how you should talk to them when you want to present your data. And that's something I'm very interested in. So I stopped looking entirely at the data and the sort of mechanisms, and I started thinking about how we were going to actually change the system, and it came down to people. This is one of the greatest studies of all time. If you've not seen it before, I'm about to change your life. The Tetlock study. In 1985, he kicked this study off, and he had 284 political experts. So there were people that knew a lot about policy. And he asked them 100 questions, and those questions were sort of quite general, really, but they were about predicting the future. So the idea would be this area of policy, in 20 years' time, what's going to happen? Quite simple. This thing that's happening at the moment, in 20 years' time, will there be more of it, less of it, or sort of roughly as it is now? 100 questions, and all these 284 people, they sat down, they wrote down their predictions, and he waited patiently 20 years, and he analysed the results, and he wrote a paper on it, and Daniel Kahneman read that paper, and he responded, he commented, he said, the experts have done about as well as monkeys throwing darts to the dartboard. Really badly. They've done slightly better than complete random chance. They've done much worse than what was euphemistically referred to as a minimally sophisticated statistical model, which meant just draw a line through it, like straight line. And they were phenomenally confident that they will have been proved right. So they all very much believed that their predictions would come true. So what we see there is a picture of people, policy experts specifically, who believe that they know what's going to happen next and what the future looks like, and are wrong. And it turns out that's true of all of us. Even quite near-term technology predictions are wrong from experts 80% of the time. And in fact, it's not statistically significant, but people did slightly better at predicting the future in fields they weren't the expert in. So every time somebody comes up to me and says, what's next for AI? I say, there is no point asking me. I probably know less well than the greengrocer based on statistics alone. So there we went, and I started to adjust the way I talk to people and looked up a lot of data and evidence and research and information about how can you get people and how can you present information, how can you talk to people that will put them in a state of mind where they are able to and want to listen to your information, where they feel ownership over the information, where they are able to change their minds. And that was the thing that I learned about data that I probably didn't know before this job. However, I'm moving on from that to AI because that is what I really love doing, and that's my job at the moment. So obviously we've been building up the data science team. We went from all of the data coming on Excel spreadsheets to about 8,000 live data feeds coming in ready to process, lots of predictive models, live dashboards, very exciting. And then ChatGPT hit. And none of us, shockingly, predicted that. So we weren't ready. There's technology predictions. You know, we're not very good at it even when we work in the field. So we had to figure out what to do. And that was a huge opportunity. And it put us in a space where we could suddenly, we were the cool kids. We're doing all the algorithms and stuff, start getting invited to the parties. So the ministers, you know, the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister said, well, what can you do? And I said, well, I can bring in loads of technology experts and build things that will change the world. So we set up the Incubator for Artificial Intelligence. And if you like government and if you like information and the way that we can change lives, go and look this up. It's on ai.gov.uk. They're radically transparent. They publish code, they publish blogs, they'll show pictures of everything they're doing, and they're really trying to change government. The mission of this is to make government more human with AI. So again, we're in a space where there's data and technology, but actually what we're really interested in is people. And a use case where you are either getting a teacher closer to students because they don't need to get their admin, or a use case where you're detecting people who write in that might be, for example, suicidal, and then somebody phones them when they need help immediately instead of waiting a year to get back to them. These are the sorts of use cases that we can use in government to make the experience of government much more human. I'm going to show you one little video of something the team built, which will hopefully play quietly in the background. If there's any sound, kill it. This is called Caddy, hopefully. You can download it, the code's online, and what it does is it tries to help people help others. We designed it with citizens' advice. It sits next to the citizens' advice advisor. They have a very difficult job. They have to know all the law, all of the regulations, everything you can do in order to help somebody that comes in need. And Caddy has all of that information, and it's integrated into your Teams or your Slack or your, Google Meet, and you can talk to it like a colleague at Caddy. My client has been evicted. What can they do about it? And it will come back to you with a response. A supervisor can check the response. And it does a really good job. It doesn't hallucinate, it's engineered really carefully. And as a result of that, the advisors said that they felt 2.5 times more confident that they were doing their jobs well and they were helping people. And there was a 60% improvement in the turnaround successfully of cases being resolved. So little things like that actually don't take a lot of work. They didn't take a very long time to deploy. Working with the people that want to help people. We can use AI to do brilliant things. I'm looking at the time, so I'm not going to do my last couple of slides, and instead I'll talk to you, Gavin, if that's all right.
You've got
10 seconds. We're now doing this in the Tony Blair Institute for the entire world. It's much better, it's much bigger, and we're going to try and design systems that prevent problems before they happen for governments around the world. I can't tell you loads about it, but it will be going live fairly soon. Watch this space. Little advertising piece.
Thank you, Laura.